Your Business Podcast with Frank Furness.
Well, hi everybody and welcome to Sales School, and this is Frank Furness, where we're going to help you make more money by mastering sales, dominating marketing, and really being happy. In our next episodes, we're going to be taking a look at the psychology of sales, and I'm going to be joined by my really good friend Ian Halsall, where we speak about Neuro-Linguistic Programming. You know, I think whatever you do in life, you've got to have a goal first. You said it a little bit earlier on. You've got to have goals. Now, if I look at my own life, I grew up in a little gold mining village where my father was a miner. He used to go down underground every day. And when I was 9 years old, they had a massive sinkhole. We actually had to evacuate the area and leave everything we ever had there. And we had to start our life all over again. And my parents did this at the age of 50. They started their own business. They went on to become an incredibly successful business. And they said to me, you've got to have goals. Whatever you want in life, be the best that you can be, but set goals for yourself. Well, I had a great career in sales in South Africa. And by 1993, we had a wonderful house with a swimming pool, a tennis court. We drove the nice cars. Life was really comfortable. I was then offered a job to come and work in London. Problem was, I had to find my own way over. I had to pay my own fare. I even had to pay for my own work permits. And I was going to join a company where I was going to be working on a commission-only basis with no leads. Well, a lot of people would see that as a challenge, but we just saw that as a new goal, a great new opportunity. We came over, and fortunately, if you've got a goal and you've got a focus, you make things happen. 8 years ago, we started up our training and speaking business, and once again, we had a goal. We knew where we were going. Right now, I'm setting up an internet company. So, for me, you're never too young or you're never too old to start setting goals. In fact, if you'd like to find out a little bit more about goal setting, why not send me an email to frank@frankfurness.com, and I'll tell you a little bit more about our great new product called It's All About You. Or even take a look at my website, www.frankfurness.com, frankfurness.com. Now, Ian, let's speak about goals and how that actually affects us and how that actually is part of the NLP.
Well, the first thing is to understand about your brain. There's a reason for N being in NLP, neurobiology, because the biological part of your thinking process, your brain, is a phenomenal powerhouse. Before I get on to goals, just briefly, let's talk about the power of the mind. The average human brain has 1 trillion brain cells. Well, it depends on which biology textbook you read, actually. Some of them say 6 billion, whatever. Next thing is what percentage of those brain cells do we use? Not a lot. The answer to that question, by the way, again, depends on which year you read your biology textbook. Latest research, we're talking about 0.5%. A staggeringly small number of a staggeringly large number. What does that say? It means the capacity of the brain is phenomenal. Just phenomenal. And that's just the number of brain cells. The critical thing isn't the number of brain cells even. The critical thing is the connections between the brain cells. And the percentage of our capacity that we use in that regard is absolutely microscopic. In fact, I was in London talking to one of the world brain experts, and I said, what percentage of our potential do we use? He said, Ian, best as you will ever understand the word, it's infinity, because you can do so much with your brain. Next thing is, what do we use our brains for? Well, the average person, and I'm not entirely sure I know how they've measured this, but the average person thinks 50,000 thoughts per day. Now, whether an idea or a word or a sentence is a thought, I won't get too much into that, but basically, you as a human being are a kind of thinkaholic. To try and stop thinking is almost impossible. In fact, the human brain is the only organ in the human body which never stops working. In fact, that's kind of interesting if you combine it with the fact that in terms of calorie consumption and oxygen consumption, it's the biggest consumer. The human brain consumes 20% of the oxygen you breathe. The main reason you breathe is to keep your brain alive. So, what have we got? We've got a phenomenal piece of kit that's massively powerful, that's compulsively doing all of this stuff. Terrific piece of good news. So what's the problem? Most people, and particularly most salespeople, are using that capacity for nervousness, anxiety, procrastination, wondering what might go wrong, finding excuses to not make calls, and so on and so on. Most people are not thinking that much about what they want. They're thinking about what they don't want. They're not thinking about the future and where they want to go. A lot of people are reminiscing, thinking about what went wrong, or even better still, what went right in the past. So why are goals important? Goals are important because if you're not thinking about your goals, those 50,000 thoughts per day will probably gravitate to something that's not useful for you. So the first thing is understand the power of goals. Now, this isn't special to NLP. Any decent sales program like the ones you do, Frank, will talk about goals. Any good personal development program will talk about goals. It's vital, and NLP is the same. And there's something more. If someone was to ask me what's NLP really about, I would say it's about getting away from what and towards how. Everybody knows that goals are important. You talk to any successful person. I've interviewed many millionaires over the years, billionaires even, and the thing is, within minutes they'll start talking about, well, my goal was, my plan was, my goal was to do this, my goal was to do that. So, okay, that's fine. The next thing is to get away from the what of goals to the how of goals. Now, frankly, if all you do is get a piece of paper and write them down, that'll probably do for most people. In fact, there are many personal development programs and sales training programs that tell you to do just that. NLP takes it even further. NLP gives you the, quote, how to, unquote, of setting goals. Because here's the thing. If you set your goals in the way your brain likes to get them, you're going to find them easier to achieve than if you don't. So I'm going to talk about that now. The first thing is, what kind of person are you? Now, if we talk about the 5 senses, we can divide people as their preference. Visual, do you like to see stuff? Auditory, do you like to hear stuff? Kinesthetic, do you like to feel stuff? Those are the big 3. Olfactory and gustatory, smell and taste. So those are your 5 senses: sight, sound, touch, smell and taste. And we're all different. Some of us are very, very visual. Some of us like photography as a hobby. We like to go to the movies, art galleries. We judge people by how they look. That's some people, but it's not all people. Some people are very auditory. They like to listen to people. They'll judge people by how their voice sounds. Some people will generate opinions based on information that is heard as opposed to read. Kinesthetic people, well, I'll tell you, if you're with a kinesthetic person, the meeting hasn't started until you've put a sample of something in their hands, or a contract in their hands, or a pencil in their hands, or something. They feel, and they will make judgments not based on what they see, not based on what they hear, but the kind of general feeling they get from being with you. So those are the big ones: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. I'm going to add another one, which is not in all of the NLP books you can read, but it's in some of the ones that are most helpful. And that's a 6th category called auditory digital. Auditory digital is a category of people who are very data-based. They're very driven by logic, by numbers, by facts. And depending on who you're selling to, when we talk about rep systems and rapport, you might want to have a bit of behavioral flexibility to switch between them. Coming back to goals, well, what are you as a person? Now, by way of introducing rep systems, which we may be talking about a little bit later, I think, Frank, we'll be talking about how you can use them to build sales and build rapport. But just for yourself, I'll just briefly, to help you understand what you are, how do you decide what to do? Are you predominantly turned on by visual stuff? Are you one of these people that find yourself saying the words, hey, don't tell me, show me? If so, good chance you're visual. Equally, if you're the kind of person who likes to hear information, where you just get halfway through a sales presentation when you're buying yourself and you say, well, just stop showing me all this stuff. Could you just tell me what it is? Or tell me what's important? If you're a telling type person, then that means you're very auditory. Kinesthetic, well, a lot of things can be got from hobbies. Are you the kind of person who really likes to go for walks? As a hobby, would you do sculpture or gardening, where you really get stuff in your hands and you can hold stuff, and that's something that's enjoyable for you? Then you might be a very kinesthetic person. And finally, I'll talk about auditory digital. Are you the kind of person that's very driven by numbers, by logic? Are you the sort of person that finds the intellectual challenge of a game of chess interesting, the working of the brain. If you're a Star Trek fan, you're somebody who likes Mr. Spock, these kind of guys who are very factual, very to the point, because depending on which those four you are, depends on how you should be writing your goals. Because if you're very visual, have goals that are very visual. Cut out newspaper clippings, or better still, colour magazine clippings. The car you want, the home you want, if you're single, the mate you want, and put colour in them. If you're sketching, use coloured pencils. If you don't mind map and you're visual, learn to mind map. Don't write a pile of words down. Draw boxes, pictures, and make them very visually rich so they're interesting to look at if you're visual. If you're auditory, well, why not these days? No excuses. Just get a recording device like a digital recorder or a cassette Walkman and read your goals into it and play them back to yourself. And the language you use, this is the L in NLP again, the language you use is really important. If you're going to talk goals, you've got to talk in a type of language. So your unconscious mind, which we'll be coming to in a little bit, likes specific information. So if you're going to talk about your goals, talk about earning a certain amount of money now. You earn such and such now. You have a car of such and such, and put it in now and make it very, very specific. If it's kinesthetic, you could have flashcards or stuff that you handle. And if it's auditory digital, you put precise detailed numbers. By the way, there's nobody who's 100% one of these systems. Nobody's 100% V or 100% A or 100% K. What you need to do is put a mix of these things together, and if you don't know, do all of them. And then put them together so that they're specific and measurable and using a representation system which is meaningful to your brain.
I think that's great. I think the first point, what you've got to do right now is maybe stop the CD and start getting those goals into perspective and set goals in every area of your life. If you really want to have a good balanced life, you've got to have the physical goals, the mental, the family, the social, the spiritual, and for me, the fun and recreation goals. So many times we're spending so much time just working that we're not taking any time out to have some fun. For me, I like to take an hour out a day to do the things I love doing. And that might be just having a good glass of red wine and listening to jazz, or going down to the gym to have a workout. What is it that you really love doing that you're not doing anymore? Well, I really hope you enjoyed today's podcast. And remember, if you'd like to book me to speak at your next conference or do some sales training, either in person or via Zoom remotely, please drop me an email, frank@frankfurness.com. Also, please take a look at my website, frankfurness.com, and take a look at some of my courses on productivitycenter.com. Remember also to connect with me on all of the social media channels. They're all under Frank Furness, especially LinkedIn, where I'm almost up to 30,000, and every day I have some great new ideas and tips on sales, marketing, speaking, and anything that will make you money. Hey, this is Frank. See you in the next episode.